Hey everybody, this is Losic Vibe, Freedom of Speech, late night radio show. There's been many things on my mind about why I started this radio station, about what my overall goal is to accomplish. And sure, it's aiming to offend and appall people. And, I'd be damned if you'd had the slightest idea why. It's like, over the course of my life, I've sought out many things, but mostly a purpose. I've sought out a revolution of thought, just begging to be understood. And everything within myself beckons me to be creative, to do things that other people do not do, to be committed and convicted of all the same. There's so many people that I know that know me, that think I'm incompetent, even think I lack intellect, because I do things that are seemingly stupid of the modern world. I sacrifice cash and comfort for addiction, and because I don't care about money. I always put other people in front of myself. I try to aid those in need, even when I haven't aided myself. I'm constantly belittled. People talk a lot of shit about me behind my back. I don't have any friends, really. Not anymore. I have people who I once called friends. Might still be on my Facebook, might listen to my show. But we've all changed. It's not the same world that it used to be. We're not the same people we used to be. And with me there's a certain intensity involved, and integrity. And all I had ever hoped for in my life was just the chance to make a difference, no matter how big, no matter how small. And I've made plenty of differences in my life, big ones maybe, small ones even. Made differences when no one was looking, made plenty of differences while people were looking. I've taken a lot of risks. I've done things that made me feel stupid. The real reason why I claim to be God or think that I am is because I feel like I'm the only person that could really relate to him. You see, because the second I say it, if the Christian's right, then God hates me because I'm a blasphemer. And I no longer have anyone to pray to, no one to turn to. The devil, he doesn't want anything to do with me. And so seemingly when I claim to be God or think that I am, God wants nothing to do with me. So I put myself in God's shoes, and I realized God has no one to pray to either. The big guy, the all God, He finds himself in the same predicament as me. To never be understood, to never have one to pray to, no one with the answers for him. He just has to figure shit out on his own. His omnipotence only comes from strife and trial. God could have only been molded from living the hardest existence you could ever imagine. If he had lived the perfect one, he wouldn't be God. He'd be a spoiled little brat. And maybe that's what God was in the beginning. But as life gradually gets harder and harder for him, for me, we learn, we observe. And so maybe it's not so much that I am God, it's that I'm like God in many ways. But first you have to understand, what is God? He's an omnipotent being. He has ultimate power, ultimate say over his existence and over yours. And people hate him because children die. Because horrible shit happens in the world. And so we find a world of people that he created and gave life to, judging him. And maybe that's the only reason he put that rule into place to begin with. Don't judge. Because he didn't want to face the judgment himself. He spends too much time judging himself. Not enough time judging the people who deserve it. So what is God? An omnipotent being with ultimate power over himself and you. And people hate him because children die. But you don't understand why they die. You don't understand that everybody dies. Children, women, men alike. Black, yellow, green, it doesn't matter. No one can beat death. And so finally I figured out a long time ago in the Bible, the angel of death had been God the whole time. Who was Cain. The first murderer in history. He was cursed with immortality. He'd be a lot of prolific characters throughout the segments of the Bible. A lot of prophets. And even Jesus. And the devil is actually a representation of God trying to forgive himself for the murder of his brother Abel. It's a paradox. God is existent and immortal only through a paradox of making himself immortal. History repeats itself out of necessity. And God is the only one unwilling to accept death at any given point in time. Striving to be alive no matter the cost. Because for the man who made it all, he doesn't know what's going to happen to everything when he dies. He doesn't know what's going to happen to him when he dies. He already knows what happens to you, to anybody else. But for him, it's a mystery. It's the only thing he doesn't know. What is the death of a god? I think it's beyond human comprehension as well as God's comprehension. So in that aspect, yes, I relate. See, when I tell people the story about me shooting myself, it's not a lie. It wasn't a dream. And I remember it very well. It's the best memory I have. I've told the story the same for years, trying to convince people for it to be true. So I don't need to rehash the rant. I shot myself at one point in time and I came back from the dead. 3 years old in a new body. No idea of who I was. Couldn't recall my name. Shortly after I asked my mom what my name was, I went to the back. I think we were living in Vallejo, if I recall correctly. Saw a dead cat, and I understood the concept of death, and that's when I realized I wasn't 3 years old. I didn't know what I was, who I was. But 3-year-olds don't have dreams of shooting themselves through point of view perspective. I was looking through eyes. I was controlling my body, the gun. I pulled the trigger. I consciously decided to do it. I just didn't feel any pain. And once I pulled the trigger, I couldn't do anything anymore. I was watching the rest of it happen. But I think I've been killing myself life after life. And that question is why? Well, let's say I can relate to God. That's the best I can give you. That's why. To know what it is to truly be alone in a world full of people must be how God feels. He's the only one of his kind. He is the all-God, the one who made everything. So now let's say I'm not God, which is very likely. I'm possibly, probably, most likely not the God. When I say that, it's just my way of relating in a way that people can understand as well as myself. Let's say I'm not anything biblical. which is a guy who got stuck in a paradox of suicide. I just kill myself over and over again. I'm not saying that I'm going to kill myself, because trust me, I've learned it's pointless. Maybe that's why they let me keep the memory. I don't know why I remember doing it. I don't know why. I've always been different. I'm not saying I'm special. I'm not saying I'm fucking the Messiah himself here to save the fucking world, but since I was little, I was pretty damned to try to save the world. Because even at 3, I could see it was flawed horribly. And not in a beautiful way. Can you imagine what it's like to consistently be surrounded by sleeping people? You ever wake up in the morning after a friend stays the night, and you're the first one awake, and everyone's still asleep? You don't want to spend the whole morning walking on eggshells, so you try to wake them up. The more and more you push, the more and more they want to sleep. And it's been that way my whole life. I've always been a morning person too, ironically. And every friend I have sleeps in, and they love their sleep, and it's always me in the morning waking them up. Come on, man, get up. Time to get up. And I always do it in creative ways, man. I'll bang pots and pans, or, say something original. But I always try to be nice about it. So at some point when I start getting, irritable, it's a unique perspective to think that one is God. In the society that I live in, it's forbidden, which is the Christian nation. Even for a Satanist, they perceive themselves as their own God, but not the God. I perceive myself as the God. And I started doing that strictly because it was forbidden. The forbidden fruit. But I think, therefore, I am. It's the one thing that I will say, I'm sorry if it offends you. I really am. It offended me too at one point, just to think it. But to imagine that there's a book that says he would be back. Who are you to say that I'm not? What if I was God? Look back on how you've treated me in the time that we've known each other. And ask yourself, what kind of judgment would I pass on you at the gates? Would it be good? Did you treat me well? Maybe from now on, people should look at each other like, I wonder if this person's God. And the more you start to realize exactly what I'm trying to accomplish by saying this, the more you'll realize how much of a difference it would make in the world to look at each other like that. Because every time you treat somebody poorly, every time you pass judgment upon someone, is that person God? And is he going to pass judgment back upon you? I'm not religious. I hate Christianity. I hate churches. But I speak in a language that people can understand. Biblical. Because we live in a religious nation. So ask yourself the next time you're passing judgment upon someone else, if you can pass the same judgment upon yourself. And if so, would it get you in the gates of heaven? Would it get you where you wanted to go when you die? And if you're an atheist, you're worm food anyways, so it doesn't matter, does it? Anyways, that's our time. I might do another show later. This has been Freedom of Speech. I hope you enjoyed.